You nailed it. Our energies are very similar, scary.
Good people together for great conversation.
People and groups, and that's awesome. I'm excited.
Every follow-up helps. I believe
I had
that.
to edit like a pro, and it was very.
All right. Welcome everybody to our third episode of the Access 360 podcast. This was, I'd say, birthed out of the idea that we want to bring good people together for great conversations and ideas and see how things evolve. And before we even got started today, I said, David, what do you want to talk about? Tony, what do you want to talk about? As we're not coming in here with any specified, this is what it is, but I think when you bring good minds together, good conversations ensue and valuable information is shared. So I'll do a quick introduction of who I know you to be, David, and then we can kind of springboard from there. You can clarify some of that, but we met at a networking group, Business Networking International, and I think in some ways it was the name connection, but we have a similar energetic state and way that we engage and talk, and there was like instant chemistry in some ways. I think part of that is because you have just a good heart set, mindset approach to how you interact and engage with people, that you're involved in a number of different businesses and business aspects and elements, and you're an entrepreneur, and you're running PostNet and helping people market. You do photography and a number of other things, nonprofits. And how are we doing today, David? How are you?
I'm doing great, David. Listen, you're right. You nailed it. Our energies are very similar, scarily similar. I think that beyond that, what I think really was great for our connection is that you didn't meet me with fear. Like, you came with all of who you were, and then afterwards you were like, is this okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's perfect, because we have a very similar, can be considered aggressive energy, can be considered, over the top, but it's just real. Like, and I love that about who you are and about how I view the world, is that I do everything with 100% of my energy. I really don't have a holdback valve. And so sometimes I'm not going to rub everyone the right way, but those who are willing to accept great energy, then they're going to enjoy us. And I think we have that in common.
Well, it's a funny moment that you're mentioning too, because we met at it was a happy hour for our group, and I left that conversation. I was like, did I go a little too hard? Like, but sometimes you meet somebody and you just feel like, oh, I can run a little faster. I can go a little bit, maybe more aggressively with the jokes or just the kind of banter. And if I don't know somebody that well and I did that, I was like, did I kind of lean into him like he was my best friend too much? And I actually had to message you and say, did I do that? Because
yeah, we were good. You read the energy right. You were in the right place, right person, no issues at all. I thought you were genuine, and I love the energy you bring. So it's a good starting point, and we've done business together since. I'm always happy that, a lot of people will try to do business with you, but it's not genuine. So there's a starting point and then it disappears. Well, we've now done multiple projects together, and I'm just going to try to keep giving whatever I can to help you to be in the best place that you can be. So
beautiful. Well, let's do this. I think some of the topics that are most relevant for us and maybe you with your expertise is one, like how we bring to life a brand and market ourselves, market a business. And I think you have some of that experience even more so now that you've started PostNet. Do you want to tell us maybe just a little of the background of starting PostNet, and like, let's do that.
absolutely.
Let's do that first. And then like what I'm curious about a lot of times is like, what are the pain points that people come in and ask you about? So we'll do that after. And just to introduce Tony here. Tony, how are you doing today? Before we get into the David Muir conversation, Tony's our teammate and kind of he's been co-facilitating this podcast. I don't want to leave you out before we get going, Tony.
I'm doing great. I'm just happy to be here and to hear from David, get some wisdom and hear him share, the things that he's gone through and how he's built his brand. And he also mentioned community, which I'm sure he'll get into and how that kind of flows into the things that are around him, specifically people and groups. And that's awesome. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, David, give us a little bit of the background on PostNet, how you got into it and what you're looking to do.
Definitely. So
Also,
PostNet,
prerequisite, if I go blank for some reason, the Wi-Fi may be a little bit choppy. You and Tony can continue and you may lose me for a moment or two, but over to you, David.
no worries. So definitely, I'll start off with a little bit of the background, what brought me to PostNet. So I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, and I literally started my first business while I was in high school, and I've just really continued in the entrepreneur space my entire life. Even at times I went to work for corporations and did, that business. I always kept my hand in some aspect of entrepreneurship. So in the earliest of my entrepreneurial days, I was into music business. I did a lot of partying and promotion of parties, and then I started promoting artists, and I did artist management, and I did a lot of that type of work. So I always had a little bit of a background in the whole marketing realm. Further along, I started a very serious business as a parent, as a husband. I was now married, building a family. I had sort of left a lot of the juvenile business that I started and worked in, and I needed to do something that was much more permanent and serious. And then I started doing photography as a business, not just as a hobby. And that taught me a lot about branding and positioning, not only because I needed to do it for myself as a photographer, because, a lot of times people who are photographers get assumed to be just a picture man. Oh, take me a picture here. What's that? $1? Thank you. And I had to position myself as someone who was not just doing photography as a picture, but it was presenting art or is presenting work that was worthy of a brand. I had to position that, and so that took me and my thinking cap into how do I really do that and do it well so that I can earn real good, deep, proper money to support my life as a photographer. So that's one aspect. And then secondarily, now my wife was talking about retirement, and in that space, my first thing, well, what are you going to do when you're retired? What could we do together? And so that brought us to the idea of let's do a business together. I've been doing business my whole life, but I definitely wanted to now do something as a joint effort with my wife. And that's what brought us to PostNet. We investigated a few options, whether it was other franchise businesses, and we did look at a lot of different ones. But PostNet really worked for us as a couple because, of course, she has great experience in, and well, she was in higher education for 25 years. And so that sort of experience with a certain level of customer service and sort of, real corporate business, bringing that to our business, along with the idea that I was also looking for something that would be in the realm that allowed me to utilize some of the marketing and branding experience I had as someone who worked on building my own brands, and then as a photographer doing it for other companies, how I elevated their brands. So I had a lot of experience that brought me to this kind of perfect world with PostNet. Now is a business that does both shipping and printing. Shipping sort of being the primary where that brand started, with the whole concept of mailboxes, etc., and how people would have like an alternate post office option. That grew into a business, PostNet, which does both the full shipping line. So we do FedEx, DHL, UPS, USPS, all of those brands. And then what are other complementary services that we could offer. So we do a lot of things in our house here, including things like laminating and binding and, notary services. And we really get into a lot of high-end printing. So we print photo art, we print brochures, we print pull-up banners, we print tablecloths. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we even do branded apparel like I'm wearing right now. So we can do a lot of services that helps to elevate branding of businesses. And that should, in a nutshell, explain what PostNet is and how we got here. It was a perfect business for my wife and I to work in day to day together.
It was a good nutshell. Yeah, full of great stuff. No, because I mean, I've been into the shop. I've got some business cards, some banners, and even some custom made T-shirts last minute. What's like? Is there what's the most common thing that somebody's coming into the shop and saying like, and it might be a surprising thing, but I'm curious, like, what are most people coming in and looking for in terms of promotional materials?
So when it comes to promotional materials, it really isn't one like perfect storm. I think the one we probably do the most is one that you've done. I think pull-up banners is the promotional product that most people want and don't know where to get. So we offer a good solution there. However, I will say that it's a great mixture of all of the ones that I was mentioning before. And then one that a lot of people come here for, which I don't know if it's typical, is things that they can put onto a foam core, a board. So yeah, people want signs that they want to put in their car window, a magnet for their car door, or something they can put literally like a they call them yard signs. I mean, people want signage that they can put anywhere really quickly. And I think that that's probably the one that surprised me the most. I never, when I started the business, would have dreamt. I thought only politicians got those types of signs, but everybody, a lady came like just this week, and it's not a business, but she wanted to do a birthday sign for her 10-year-old child, like, oh, double digits now. And she did this whole sign. And I was like, wow, like, here's a mom. This is something that I thought was just primarily for businesses. And here was a mom just doing one for her daughter's 10th birthday.
That's interesting because I guess signs are. I remember we went to my godmother's house recently, and there was a huge 50th birthday party, I think it was, that was in the yard, but it was a gigantic sign, and somebody has to make that
Somebody
sign.
does. Yeah.
What do you think? Like, I love to think about how we optimize and do things better. What do you think the biggest challenge that you've seen with people coming in and trying to market their business? Like, where did they stumble the most, so to speak, or where do you see an opportunity? Because we were just on a conversation about marketing for like car dealer agencies and some of the online, the ads, the different things. And I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs struggle to figure out how to get their name out there and how to do the things. Now you're not necessarily doing digital marketing, but in many ways they're coming in to get things to promote something. What are the biggest challenges you see with some of your clients?
I think actually it is with the digital realm that I see the biggest challenge, and I think it's to do with the design. Now, I don't pretend to be a graphic designer, and we work with graphic designers. A lot of the times, I end up doing design for folks, but I'm a very basic, low-level designer personally. But I find people have a lot of issues with design. They try to put too much in the messaging, and it becomes very confusing and becomes too much for people who are on the consuming side to consume. It's really best to keep things much more simple and with a lot less information. And then additionally, if you can show a picture or some diagram that explains what you want your messaging to be rather than to put in 10 paragraphs, because people don't really want to read as much anymore. I find that that's one of the biggest pain points I see, that people, even recently, I did a car magnet for someone, and they, they thought what I did was too simple, and I have no problem with that. I'm not a graphic designer, but they then wanted to take it to their graphic designer, and then they came back with something that was, it was just an overload of information. No one would ever stop, like in traffic when you're passing a car with a car magnet, no one's reading, you know 10 sentences on the side of a car in traffic. You just want your phone number, your business type, your phone number, or your email, like something that's going to grab their attention. Oh, let me make a note of that website. But it's not going to be, here's how you get your virtual assistant to work best for you, and here's 10 paragraphs about the best strategy. No, it's virtual assistants. This is how you get in touch with us. Best prices for staffing your current needs. It's like, you got to keep it simple. The messaging, I think, gets to be overborne and overdone with a lot of what people are doing. That's, I think, a big pain point.
Yeah,
I
you
I
had
love what you said about. I was just gonna say, I heard in advertising that they say if everything screams, nothing speaks, and that's kind of what you're hitting on, And I really like that, because they say that's one of the biggest hiccups in advertising and marketing in general. If everything's just screaming out, it's like the very thing that you're trying to get people to focus on is empty, and you never get there.
Yeah, David, I remember you had to cut me down to size a little bit because I had some creatives that you had some creative feedback on, and I did get that wave in there, and I think that was a good touch, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no. So good when it's graphical, not good when it's verbal. Like if it's too many words, it can ruin the message. You want to keep the words as to just what's needed.
They say the KISS method, which is keep it simple, Steve, keep it simple, Sally, keep it simple or suffer, or some people say keep it simple, stupid. But keeping it simple is important, I think, and a lot of sometimes we overcomplicate what we're actually trying to do in some of our communication and some of our messaging here. Yeah. What let's go a little, what's your biggest challenge? Like, what is something like with this particular business? Is it growth? Is it like too much? Or like, what are you guys experiencing as like a bottleneck or something that gives you a little bit of maybe agita?
Yeah, I have a few of those. I think our biggest issue right now is that I don't think we've done enough marketing and branding of ourselves. Like, so we've spent a lot of our energy helping people, which is great, but we need to do a lot more with the work on getting the word out about the services we're providing. And we really, I think the best way to put it is that we need to get a lot more B2B business occurring, because we can get a lot more repeat business. People are only going to print a wedding invitation once every 5 years. They're not getting married too often. But if you're doing a business, if you're helping a business to get their marketing done, then they're going to continuously need to put some effort and some bucks into their efforts. And so that's a more viable client. So I think we have to pivot a little bit and focus more on getting more B2B business going. And that's a big part of why I'm in this new BNI group, Pinnacle. So I'm hoping to grow in that space, but that's not the only way. I mean, obviously that's a great way, but we have to do more. And so that's, I think, our challenge right now. I think another thing for us is how to balance staffing. So while we are pretty fine day to day, if I'm here spending my energy working in the business and my wife is doing the same, then we don't really have anyone sort of taking a step back and working on the business, developing our systems and making sure we're growing the way we need to. So I think for us, a pain point additionally in terms of how we're going to be more successful is to create space and time so I can focus on building the business in a different way than just working every day in production here. So
Yeah, I was, I think when I came in, I was thinking, man, you must have so many cool people of all different kinds of backgrounds and businesses. And it sounds like not even business sometimes. Sometimes it's just a family gathering for a birthday sign. And so you're actually a space that invites and brings in a lot of different businesses, business type people. And those are all, I think, opportunities for relationships. And sometimes I heard this a little while back from a guy named the Referral Navigator, but he said most businesses make most of their business through referrals. And then he asked me the next question, which was, how many businesses do you think have a very specific approach to their referral process? And the answer was slim to none. Like most people will say that I get most of my business from referrals, and most businesses don't have a very specific approach to how they ask for referrals or encourage them from their client base. And I think that's just an interesting thing to be reflecting on. But it's a real challenge for, I think, all of us in one way or another, is how do we make the wheel spin as fast as it can, but then take the time to pull back and say, what's the most strategic approach to running this business, or where can we move the needle a little bit more? And that's how you said it was, working in the business versus working on the business. Tony, what do you got around all of this? Anything that's coming up for you? Because you've done a lot of different businesses and business analysis. What's coming up for you in the conversation?
Well, his authenticity, I think, is great. They say 90% of consumers say authenticity is a key factor when deciding which brands they support. And it seems he is very, very authentic. I love how he's a brand himself and he's speaking about the brand. But at the end of the day, his business is literally bringing a lot of brands in there to be able to utilize his company to share their brand with others. So I find that really, really cool. And I always found that they say that most powerful marketing strategy is doing the right thing loud enough for others to notice. So, I always found that really funny when I heard it. And so it's doing it consistently and it's being loud so that people can see and the value in what you're trying to do. And I love what he's saying. It's just really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that came up pre-show before we hit the live button, the record button. But I think that was something that stood out for Tony, you meeting David the first time. But David, you made a comment about how, I think this is just a testament to what I know about you and a testimony to who you are, but that in your heart is really like, how do I help people? How do I support people? How do I, come from that place? Is that something you've always had? Is that something you discovered over time? Like, how did you become to be that person who in a first meeting is like, oh, like this guy really cares about people?
So definitely that's it's a part of who I am because of how I was raised. My mother and father, they're both passed now, but they both were very giving people in different ways. My mother she'd studied culinary arts and then started a restaurant, which was very successful. It was very successful because she completely immersed herself into all of her customers. And so everyone came to the restaurant to see her and to interact with her. And everyone who came to the family's business wanted her to sit with them and to interact. So that's one part of how I developed into this sense. And then the second part of me is really to do with my father. And so my dad really was someone who he grew up very, very poor, but because he did, when he sort of found his way out of poverty, he wanted to help all the people that he knew that were poor. So he really, just and it's so interesting because my dad didn't have an opportunity to go to school, traditional schools, because of the time he was born and his family not having income, but he would go every day to the convent, and the nuns and the people there took such great care of him that he learned that spirit of being someone who wanted to care for others from them. So I have this mix of that coming from sort of my dad's involvement with the church and involvement with helping people because he grew up getting help. And then my mother's sort of service background, being someone who studied culinary, but in a way that was service oriented. So that's a big part of how I became this person. So everyone who meets me knows almost immediately that I want to hug everybody and lift them up in whatever way I can.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's for some it's part of culture you were raised in. Sometimes it's the product of seeing what you don't like and not and wanting to create something different. And some of it is a life progression as well. It was like, oh, I was this way, and now I'm this way. How do you instill it in others? I don't know if you have a way that, obviously you have people that may be working in your business or children or otherwise, like you actually a teacher too. Like how do you bring that to other people?
So again, for me, it's just 100% authenticity. So especially as a teacher, like again, it's a part of, I love what I do. So I teach photography and I love photography with a deep passion. And so I want others to be as good as me or to be better than me. And a lot of people don't understand that spirit because they think you should be competitive and hold close all your secrets. But I feel differently. I feel like the best compliment I can give to myself and to my expertise is by showing it to someone else and having them become as good or better than me. And so every time I teach, that's my goal, is to create a better version of myself. Uh,
Right.
hard to explain it any other way, but that's just as genuine as it can come out because I really want for others to be as successful or more successful than I have been.
Yeah, Tony, did you have something on that one?
I was just thinking, just doing ministry and even in business and stuff, but I've always said the same thing. It's like when you're pouring into somebody, your ultimate goal is for them to do way better than you. And I always feel like, we don't like to think we have limits, but at the end of the day, we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, but whatever we maximize, even in our greatest things, right? We're still at a place that if we poured into somebody all that we know, they're gifted as well, and they actually now have everything you have plus their gifts, and then they maximize that. And so it's super awesome. And just hearing you say that, a lot of people don't realize that, but that is the goal. And that's the goal. And what is marriage and parenting and community and pouring into others in that community. And so, yeah, it just kind of reaches far, not just in the business aspects, but everyday life.
Absolutely. I'll even touch a little further because I do participate in mentoring of youth. And so in that role, I see it in the same way, but even greater opportunity because when I mentor, I mean, I really want to lift up because unfortunately, the people who I get an opportunity to mentor didn't have the same opportunities that I had, even though my dad came from a very, great poverty. I did not. I grew up in a middle class household, and so I had all the privileges of going to a good school, having great colleagues and friends who had the same types of advantages I had. So when I mentor now and I'm mentoring youth who didn't have the same opportunities that I had, it just even strengthens my resolve because I want to pour into them and show them that there are greater opportunities out there than what they've seen in their life and what they've experienced in their limited experiences to this point.
It's awesome.
Yeah. We'll just maybe dig a little deeper here because if you've had a lot of experience, I've had it personally, and it still comes up, is because of how we may have been raised or because of how we may have seen our parents operate as business people or not, like we may have a mental container that is, oh, this like I'm not bigger than this, or I'm not capable of more than this, or this is all I know. Have you found anything that helps younger people break through whatever mental limitations they may have on what they're capable of?
A lot of things can help. I mean, it manifests differently in different people. I remember specifically, this is going to date me a little bit. I guess I won't mention the year, but I remember I was helping someone, and they never experienced sort of like pro sports the way that I'd seen it. And so I introduced them to pro sports, and they were like, wow, amazed by what they were witnessing. And I think that's just a little clue into the breakthrough can come in many different ways, but it's really about introducing people to things that they were not aware of before. So if you can, I think, take the time to learn who it is you're working with, mentoring, or any other role, staff members or whoever, and give them an opportunity to see things that they had not been aware of. So you sort of like opening up. I'm not calling anyone ignorant, but if you're unexposed, then there's a certain amount of naivety or ignorance of certain topics. And if you can break those barriers, then it allows them to grow exponentially. I think that's really the best way to look at it, is to just expose people to new ideas, new experiences, new ways of envisioning their world, and then the sky is the limit.
Yeah, I think, if I look back on some of my life, and it's been moments where somebody with maybe more experience or more wisdom or something saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and they made me aware of it, or they encouraged it, or they said something. Like, there's like, I can count a number of those moments in my life where that was what made the difference. So I think when we can pour into people and just tell them who we see them to be and what they're really capable of, that makes a huge difference. And it's such a gift that I've been given by a lot of people, and I think we can give out to others as well.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what you're saying, because it certainly triggered something for me. I also know not everyone responds the same way, but I think it's really important to be honest and not only tell people good things. You got to tell them the bad. You have to be honest about where they can improve. I recently went to a game where one of my mentees was playing a sport, and I saw a lot of potential, but I saw a lot of room for improvement. And I didn't really feel good about it, but I had to say, hey man, you got to practice more. You got to work on your defense. You got to work, because sure, you've got a lot of talent, but you're not maximizing your opportunity. And I don't know how it was received, and I don't even care. I just wanted to be sure that I gave that, I had to pour that into, just let him know that, hey, there is more for you with greater effort. And sometimes those types of little nuggets are going to help a lot. You have to be willing to not be the nice guy. You just got to share the truth.
Talk about that blind spots. You always want to surround yourself with loving people that are willing to talk about your blind spots. That it's not going to condemn you. They're going to bring it to encouragement, but they're going to bring those things to light so you can pivot and grow in those areas. So yeah, I love that. Anything else you'd like to add on that? There he is.
I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah, as Tony put it, I was pointing out the possibility of exposing blind spots that people have for their benefit, only with the desire to help them, but just to be, courageous enough to share. Because sometimes people don't think it's good to tell people about things that may not be the strengths that people have.
Yeah. Well, I think a good dose of reality sometimes and truth is important in both directions. Like, because sometimes we don't see the upside potential we may have, but also we need to be aware of like where we're falling a little short, and that's a comfortable conversation we can have. And I think that's important too, because we don't want to glaze over where there is room for improvement at times. Yeah. Well, let's wrap up, wind down. Let's do this. What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in your business or personal, whatever comes up? But is there a lesson that's like really just pops out, left a mark on you, something that you would share the wisdom of it with us?
So I think the thing that I feel is worth, I mean, there's a lot of them, but the one I think that's, resonating with me right now is never be afraid to ask for help. Like a lot of times we're out here working on projects, working on a business, working on something on our personal lives, and we're doing the work, we plan things well, and we get to a point where we feel like if we're not able to complete it on our own, that it's not going to be done. Now you got to be able to stop and say, hey, I'm going to put what I'm working on out to my community and ask for guidance, assistance, or just general help to get the job done. And I think it's a really important part of why I can even be a part of business networking um, group. And someone is like, it's okay to look for ways to improve yourself with the help of others.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes whether it's society, culture, socialization, we like don't want to expose that we can't figure it out or we need assistance or we need help. And sometimes that's actually what causes more failure in the wrong ways because we didn't just say, hey, like, could you help me with this when help was right there? And I think it's because there's a pressure that we have to figure it out. And what I've learned in entrepreneurship and talking to a lot of entrepreneurs is, we fail all the time, and you got to be willing to fail and willing to step out there and willing to, maybe be wrong or willing to say you need help. And if you don't, then like you might just get stuck in paralysis sometimes too. Yeah. So. Tony, anything you want to ask David before we wrap up? We could, ask him a little curveball or anything you want to say.
I was just curious how long you've been actually mentoring people in your community. For how long?
Wow. So I guess it's been a really long time. So I guess the first that I can think of probably would have started about 1990. So we're looking at about 35 years of doing some forms of mentorship. It may have even started before that, but that's like the first one that really comes to mind because I could specifically recall who I was helping then. And then it actually reminds me of something else. So around that same time, around 1989, 90 is when I started doing artist management as well. So while I worked in the music business, I did do some amount of artist management. And it is somewhat like helping people. It's different because it's supposedly financially motivated. But if you're really a good manager and if you're in that role, it can't be just about money. And so, yeah, I think I first started mentoring in 1990 officially, but I've been doing it for a long time and I actually really enjoy it. And I never try to take on too much of it at once because then I don't have the time to give everyone the right type of input. But it really is great to see, especially when you take someone like I'm mentoring a young man right now. Currently, I started with him before he was in high school. Now he's a sophomore in high school, and I just love to see the growth as an example. But I'm happy to mentor. I mentor photographers at every level. I have some who are early industry, and then I have some who are mid industry or mid career, and I just love to see people as they thrive in that way.
I love that. You have all three of the pillars of what they call the community entrepreneur, which is the builder, the bridge, and the beacon. You solve the problems locally in your own business and what you're doing there. You bridge and connect people, and you're a beacon. So you model the values and share that with those young ones that you're trying to do.
I didn't know those three. That's cool. Builder, bridge, and beacon. Did you know those, David, or no?
I did not. I'm glad to learn again why we always love doing things like this. Joining your podcast today is like, yeah, and I'm also learning right now. So it's always great to hear.
You're a builder, a bridge, and a beacon. I like that. Well, thanks for putting
We
that
all
in,
need to
Tony.
be. It's what we all
You
need
said
to be.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Standards to shoot for and live by. Very good. All right, David, we're gonna wrap this up. Anything else you wanted to say and didn't say, or anything that's on your heart that you want to leave us with?
So for me, just happy to have the opportunity again. I love who you are, David Rush. I love what you're doing. I'm looking forward to see you have tremendous success in your newest business and as well as with this podcast. I hope the audience supports you in all that you are doing, particularly with spreading, sharing the content from this podcast, and then also letting people know about the business that you're doing with Access Virtual. And then last but not least, I do want to say that if everyone who listens to this podcast gives themselves the opportunity to give back to their community, however you define that, whether that's the people who live in your neighborhood or people who share the same church or whatever it is that you define as your community, could be your country of origin or so on, just give back in some way to some part of your community. And if we all do that, the world is just going to be a better place. So that's my encouraging words at the end of this podcast today.
Thank you, David. And I did want to add, do you want to mention where you're at, like the cross streets of PostNet, where people can actually go that are listening and hearing this?
Absolutely. So PostNet in Palm Beach is at the corner of Lantana Road and Military Trail. So it's pretty easy to find if you know Palm Beach at all. These are two pretty important roads and an easy intersection. Literally, I'm in the midst of Green Acres, Lantana, Atlantis, and Boynton Beach. We're at the cross section of those four cities. And so, yeah, PostNet Palm Beach, we handle everything for shipping, everything for printing, and everything for your just general needs, from your notary all the way through to just printing out your business cards. So come and see us, PostNet Palm Beach.
Brilliant. Yeah, nothing but good things to say about you, David, but also about PostNet. I've been in a couple of times harassing you guys, and thank you for all the beautiful product service, and your phone number's there too. So if anybody wants to call David up for a conversation or to get something printed or shipped, you now know where you can go in Palm Beach County. So this is awesome. Thank you, David. Thank you, Tony. Tony, you have any final words of wisdom? You good, or what do you got? Are you like by the fireside, or what's happening?
Say that again.
I said, are you by the fireside there with the glow and the light? And I know you're
Yeah, I'm like in pitch darkness. Actually, I'm in pitch darkness. So in Africa, we kind of have our power go out about 3 times a week, and today happened to be that day. So I have my phone light shining, and then as bright as my computer laptop can get. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I use wisdom. Make sure you charge your stuff before you get online.
Love it. Well, anyone who tuned in, thank you for tuning in. We're going to hit the stop record button, but more to come here. Access 360.
I will say one last quote. I do have a good quote, even if you stopped it, but if entrepreneurship is the engine, they say community is the road, and you can't move forward without both.
All right. Community. Let's do the community. I'm going to stop this.
You nailed it. Our energies are very similar, scary.
Good people together for great conversation.
People and groups, and that's awesome. I'm excited.
Every follow-up helps. I believe that.
I had to edit like a pro, and it was very